let's talk about Ra. We're gonna be making
Nerf is 3.
Solar Blessing, decreasing the physical power,
Yep,
magical power,
that's what they're
Nice.
and protections on the ability. So Ra's definitely been seeing a lot of play. So we're tuning down his 3 a little
It
bit.
really just depends on how much.
Yeah, he's been doing pretty good. He was one of those characters that like people kind of were like playing around a little bit with, but then we gave him a few buffs and he really rose into prominence, especially the movement speed slow, being able to remove it with Solar Blessing, or not Solar Blessing, his 2, the one that burst the sun.
Yeah.
But we like that playstyle, we like that utility he has, but Solar Blessing was providing a bit too much. So we're just decreasing the power, protections, and magical power a little bit just to take some of the edge off, especially when you're sieging an objective or sieging it.
I don't think that impacts casual play at all because casual players are really bad at leveraging his 3 well.
Increasing the mana cost and decreasing the base.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of depends on the numbers, but I don't think it'll be a huge change. Ra will still be picked because of his just subjective control.
Why are we nerfing Erlang? Like, what the?
Increasing his mana cost, decreasing his damage just a little bit. We don't think it's going to really knock him off.
I mean, he's still really good in pro play.
Persephone up next. We're going to be seeing a nerf to Grasp of Death, and we are decreasing the ult deployable HP from.
What the? This god is she's dead.
Somebody is locked in the cage.
Wow.
More specifically, if it hits a wall and not a player. So if you miss the Persephone ult and you don't actually cage,
Oh, I like that.
its health will be decreased from 5 to 3 automatically. So it's really easy.
I feel like
I like
that's
that a lot, but like
that's
and
definitely
this is
more
just
of a
really
casual
one
change.
for frustration
For
you.
pros,
the
he's
god
still
is
hitting
already
people a lot.
dead. Yeah,
God's
pros
not
go-
dead. This really doesn't do anything in pro play. Pros is still going to be picked because of
No, pros are gonna hit it every time.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter.
I guess it eliminates casual frustration.
Yeah.
Take some of their edge off, make it so that there's a bit more competition for the very high.
But
pick
she's
and
dog
slot.
She's like bottom
just kinda
5
round out
god.
the roster.
For casuals, probably.
I think she's
For
got
sure.
average
All
win
right.
rate in
Next up, we've got
pro play too,
Emoja.
doesn't she?
Coming up.
Emoji
She's
nerf.
a high pick band, but she's like 50-50 or less.
From 30% to 20% on Riptide, and then increasing the cooldown of River's Rebuke, that's a tongue twister, by 10 seconds at all ranks.
We didn't really want to nerf her consecutively back to back. We know
The
that
Riptide nerf is irrelevant.
She is really subpar at this point.
I don't know about that.
She is still 100%.
You get hit by that, you
And
can't
know,
even
I
land
talked to a few
autos by the
pro
time they
players
get out of
pro play.
range because
Some
they're
of them
sped
are
up
like,
and you're
yeah,
slowed
we
down.
actually don't know why right now, but the
I mean,
other
still
ones are like,
20%.
no, actually, she is insane.
10% doesn't
Not
change that
just,
much.
like, a lot of these
But
different
that ult
features,
change is pretty
but
nice.
a level
I'm sick of seeing that god
issues.
anyway.
So
Same.
River's
Mostly
Rebuke,
'cause I don't have
every
one,
10
so-
seconds. We're seeing
And
pro
she's
players
boring.
line this up perpendicular
She is
to the-
boring.
to the lane and really catching a lot more people off. Riptide as well. We think the pro players.
I don't think they're gonna buff anything. I feel like they never buff anything before Worlds.
Yeah, I feel like it'll just be like quality of life changes if it'll be a buff.
We wanted to do these little targeted changes for Emoja, especially with Worlds coming up, like Pon said.
That might like drop her out of meta a little bit. I still don't think like it's enough because she just abuses early game too much,
Coming up
and then her
next
late
on
game
the
is still
nerf
insane.
list, we've got Sobek, and we're going to be seeing a decrease in base damage on lurking in the water.
What?
Sobek's really kind of turned into like a character that has been.
It's 50 damage at all ranks. It's basically irrelevant, dude.
This is literally nothing.
No,
His
it
ult is-
doesn't do anything. You're never. There's never a time where you kill somebody with-
very high up there. And so we're just
because you
looking to
did
take some
50
of
more
the
damage.
basic
Like if you did
away.
50
This
less
ultimate
damage, you were gonna kill them with their ult.
really, really
That
hard.
Also,
never happens.
The base damage is usually when you're ahead. You're ahead in solo lane, so they're nerfing solo lane Sobek, and they're keeping
But it will persist at
support
level
Sobek
eight.
basically the
Great
same.
opportunities where
Right,
Sobek
because you level every other
won't quite
ability
notice a
first,
character
right?
just
Before
Yeah,
ult.
maybe other than the pluck, but
Yeah,
I don't
I
think
mean-
that change does anything to support Sobek.
We got Set up next. Guys,
Nice.
Making a change to Skewer.
Yeah, well, they lowered it from 8
increasing
to
the cooldown
9 to
from
8.
seconds to 9 seconds.
Set is kind of just coming and taking over, right? We saw him a little bit before, then he kind of fell off a little bit, and then just bang out of nowhere. You see him play as ADC, you see him in mid sometimes, you see him in the jungle. He's everywhere.
This changes nothing. This entire patch just it makes a god who's
They
gonna be
just
banned
opened up for orders.
probably not.
We're talking about some buffs, and we've got the Morgan up next. We did it, chat. We did
Wait,
it,
they're
Brad.
buffing Morgan?
This ability is now going to transfer any jungle buff or consumable potion effects.
Oh,
that
that's
she has
really good. Yeah.
active
This is a
Uh-huh.
late game
So,
buff to her.
that elixir of
And
speed
early game, now
is
she
gonna
gets
be
the buff
literally
on
manipulated.
who she turns into.
Yeah, I think we literally saw the Reddit thread about this yesterday, which is funny because we already have.
This is a late game buff because once you get speed pot, the speed pot doesn't transfer
Yeah.
when you transform.
But it's an early game buff too, because if you transfer into a mage with red buff or the ADC with purple buff, like you're just getting extra damage. Like you're just it's a buff everywhere.
Yeah, it is. Wait, I don't think you get the buff that they have. You get the buffs that she has.
I mean, either way, it's still if it does work like that, it's probably even better for her if it's the buff she has on her because she's usually gonna have a
Yeah,
red
'cause
buff.
she's gonna take red and
Yep.
put it on a fucking solo laner.
Oh, awesome.
We'll kick it off with Zeus though.
Oh!
Aegis Assault.
Zeus?
Can now be
Zeus
placed
buffs, yeah.
over walls.
I knew about this one.
Let's go, baby.
Go through the others. You want to talk about Zeus first?
I think we could probably do them all together. It makes the most sense. In my
Yeah.
mind.
That's a quality of life change.
Yeah,
Like,
2 goes over walls now.
We like that change. That allows him to start
You're gonna
speed
like
buff
the mirror case,
differently.
too.
We're gonna be making the same
Walls
change
over
for
wall.
his wall, and then Terra
Yep,
as
his
well.
wall-
Pressing
all the
Terra,
walls go over the
those
walls
3
now.
abilities will now be able to be
Those are my
placed
3
over
mains:
walls.
Zeus, Ymir, and Terra.
Yeah, most ranged deployables in Smite can be fired over walls. There's times that
We're
we
calling
don't
this the
wanna apply this to
inbound
every
buff
single
patch.
range
Yeah, this is the
game.
inbound patch.
Looking at your,
Buff
one
Janus into the
wall,
best mid in the
walls.
game.
Maybe this
Alright,
won't
I
be
got
that
you.
effective, but for Ymir
Buff
and
the,
Terra, where you're actually
make his
putting,
2 6 seconds.
deployables that block player collision. That could be a pretty big deal, and we're pretty excited about this.
I literally make walls. It's about time.
I'm excited about this next change in particular. We're gonna be showing some love to Bologna.
I knew this was coming when you were asking about the Bologna buffs.
I'll start off with Master of War. We're going to be increasing the passive duration, and then Shield Bash, Bludgeon, and Scourge. We're increasing the weapon duration for all of those. And then Eagle's Rally. We're now going to be providing magical power to allies as well as physical power. If you were
Bologna's
standing
insane.
in the aura.
She's like as good as Amma now. I think she could jungle now because she's not gonna lose her hammer between camps.
That's actually, like, a bunch of big changes.
Yeah, I think she could jungle now. And then you ult the objectives for the shred.
It's not like you're buffing something to the point where you know it's gonna be broken. It's you're buffing something to like see how it feels.
Yep.
7 seconds is. I feel like a lot of the time you fight, you disengage for like 5 seconds, and then you look to go in again.
That no longer occurs.
Yeah.
Now it will preserve, even if you're.
So I like this changes. I like that.
It'll wait until the swing resolves, and if you hit someone, it'll stay as the bludgeon. If you don't hit someone,
I don't think that change is that
there's
massive,
a lot of quality life for Bologna.
but it's not bad either. Like it's nice.
Finally, bringing more team utility.
Bologna's not OP at all right now. She's terrible.
That magical power buff is sick.
Next up on the list,
75
Next
magical
Interlude.
power.
Quality of life change, maybe a small nerf.
Stop.
Depending on how
They
you're
better not be
feeling,
buffing
but,
tier.
We're pretty much just doing some changes to make persistent buff and debuff effects more visible when he's in his ultimate form. That
Thorns
way you can see
execute
things like
everything.
Thorns a little
Nice.
bit better.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah, that was
exactly
kind
what
of,
we were saying.
annoying to
Even
deal with.
though You cannot use relics like Thorns inside the ultimate. If you proc it beforehand and then go into the ultimate, it's still going to be obsessed.
Yeah, it's quality of life,
Pretty
but
large
it'll
damage.
make her feel
You
better.
work
She
on
will
certain
still
things
be
for
better.
Bologna,
The
it
ult
affects
is actually a
multiple
pretty
things
big
to
buff.
its effect.
I like that.
It's
I like those
ways
Bologna
you get
changes.
inside are gonna be offset towards the player's camera, so this means it's not going to
Make Geb invincible. Then he'd finally be decent.
To their camera.
That
And it's
was
only
ult.
affecting things on his waist. There are other effects that
You
might
did what?
be hidden, and we're going to be working on those on a more individual
up?
basis because, like I said, this affects a lot more.
What about his
than,
ult?
one might just expect. But for now, Thorns will be.
They're not
now
nerfing his ult with
seen
this.
by,
I mean, they're technically
players
nerfing
against
his ult
Technically.
because it's
Visually,
easier to see
yeah.
visually when he's in it.
Open the
But
feedback. Keep sending that stuff. our
They
way,
better not be
guys.
buffing tier. He does not need a tier
So we've got
buff.
another fix coming up for Hell. We're going to be fixing an issue for Stance Attunement where the passive was only increasing healing from abilities and the Fire Giant buff. It should now increase healing.
oh,
We also fixed an issue
Awesome.
where the bonus wasn't properly ramping up over time, and then we fixed an issue where an unintended temporary icon was
Awesome.
displayed on the buff bar.
I hate hell.
Yep, with all our healing changes, we're just looking for cases that break that healing consistency pass. Hell was one of them with Stance Attunement. It was oddly working on abilities and Fire Giant buff. Unsure why that one in particular, but now it's
Which
just
one?
healing from all sorts,
Delta?
same way
Healer
that-
meta, healer meta, healer meta. The healer meta's back now. I hate hell.
Along to
They did CAD change, now they're buffing
Let's
hell.
go.
Flurry Strike here. We're going to be increasing the final strike damage
Oh,
and the final strike
he's
scaling.
nuts.
Yeah, so
Oh, why did they-
largely we've just been really seeing some cool stuff. We've seen people trying him in Soul Lane, Jungle. He seems to be pretty good in both roles, although he's overwhelmingly played in the jungle.
Why'd they buff him?
And one thing we want to do is make sure
They
that
buffed the
jungle
scaling and
Loki
damage on the
has
final strike of his
unique
3.
strength that it brings,
This is Loki, right?
Clear speed was a little bit low, as we want to make sure that a Samson Loki, the one with the
Yes,
ability of 100%
wait.
power,
Solo
is
Loki's
a
already
little more
insane. He's gonna be
Flurry
even
Strike is one
better.
of those abilities that people feel is a little bit underwhelming.
Wait,
considering how long
why?
Oh, it's
why
nerfed
did
late
it
game.
go- Why did it go at rank
So we're
5
going to
from
make more
140 to
warning for increased
135?
base damage, especially on Flurry
It's because it only goes up 20 instead of 25 like it used to.
as well as the
So they
final
buffed it
strike
early game and
ability
nerfed it late
for
game.
We do hear concerns about the speed of Flurry Strike, but we think that it's important to the core goal of the Loki rework, which was reducing.
This is a-
penetration.
This is a
If that
nerf
becomes faster,
overall
it becomes
because
difficult to
the
counter.
3 is
No,
what you
you're gonna get
max.
another 10% scaling,
Where he's too
which is
frustrated
worth
with
40
that
damage.
without any-
I mean, not from solo. I mean, I guess in jungle it'll be a small buff, but in solo it's a nerf. It's the first ability you let max, and you're gonna have like 200 power if that.
We got a buff for tier here and change stance. We're going to be increasing the assault stance power, and then
Oh, not this
increasing
character.
the defense stance protections on this ability.
It's playing up the identity of each stance that you're in. Chain stance is definitely over 1-point wonder, so we wanted to make sure it just felt a little bit more relevant each time you do put a point into it. Just getting that first
Okay.
level one.
I'm fine with that.
Red
That's
rank
not a
one,
big
you're
buff.
only getting 10
That's
power,
a pretty irrelevant buff. That's not a buff.
Yeah, I guess you drop the. It's an early game buff and a late game nerf.
Next up, we've got Sylvanas. Gonna be
Yeah,
showing
for
some
Loki,
love
yeah.
To some base stats for Sylvanas here. We're gonna be
gonna have great
increasing
clear.
his base movement speed,
Yeah, his clear will be a
his
lot better
base
now,
attack
really.
speed, and attack speeds per level.
I mean, it
He
just
has the
makes it
best level
so
one in the entire game.
it feels good to put a point into his
base
3.
stats are very low. His movement speed, especially for how big he is, where his
Ao
feet are
Kwang
covering
buff?
that, like they feel like they're covering a lot of distance. He was very, very slow, and there's not really any way for his
Probably
character
just
to really
passive.
make up for that too much. As well as attack speed and.
I want a
attack
Sylv
speed
buff.
very
They should buff
low.
Sylv.
That's somewhat of a legacy thing.
That's
given
just
how powerful
passive.
Wave clear used to be, but it also means that any. items that might
Oh,
splash
let's
attack speed
go.
here and there, they don't wanna
Quang
Is
protect.
buff,
Dragon Call
baby.
is too?
Maybe a Shogun's Caesarea to help his team out. He was really benefiting negatively from that because it really works off your base attack speed.
Is Dragon
These
Call is
changes
too?
help him feel a bit better
Yes.
overall, move a bit faster,
Okay.
attack a bit faster, and just feel more smooth.
All right, and I was just super excited about that Sylvanas buff. I got
Yeah,
ahead
so
of
Loki
myself.
overall will be a
Forgot to
buff
talk
if you're
about
building
Aqua.
damage. If you're
So
building
we're gonna
tank,
do
it won't.
Dragon's King Sword here. We're going to be decreasing the power
Or
up
hybrid.
time, and then we're
The
actually
buff for
gonna
Ao Kwang
do
is nice.
The Dragon's Call, increasing the attack damage.
Dragon Calls is too. The passive change is probably bigger than the 5 damage from his 2. James has the freaking window open and it's 40 degrees outside.
The cooldown, really.
I love Sylvanas.
Get a little bit more opportunity to play around.
I
it.
love
And
Sylvanas.
Isaiah said it's a revert to the attack damage. We saw him.
Kwang, 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 Kwang. Ow, 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 ow.
In the ranked scene.
Ow.
Not even so much in the SPL, right? We haven't seen him a little bit there. So we wanted to bring the attack damage back a little bit. See,
Did I miss Sylvanas changes? Was I not paying attention?
No. They talked about it for half a second, and
So we already
he
talked
should be
about
coming up right
Sylvanas.
now.
Let's move on to Artio up next.
Oh.
Energy Surge.
They had. I'm pretty sure they just had it wrong
no,
order.
Artio
Decreasing the
meta.
mana
Ah, God.
Decompose. We're increasing the duration of the deep.
Yeah, he did say Sylvanas buff.
I was against these buffs.
Yeah, so Artio, especially early on, has heavy mana problems, as a lot of stance switchers do. They have to essentially twice the amount of abilities to fire at the start of the game.
Jeez, the Olympians are just ruining the game.
Actually mess around with like her different abilities and different stances, as well as rewarding her more for actually swapping.
Regrowth Artio, first item.
Decompose, when you hit, you apply a debuff. That's going to last longer, so you have more opportunities to play around it. As well as shapeshift the buff. going
That's
to
not- I mean,
6 similarly.
those are nice little buffs to her.
For actually, like,
Yeah, they are.
constantly swapping and using your toolkit.
Let's talk about from bears to bees. Let's talk about Amuz and Cobb, and we're going to be doing a revert
Yep.
to Stinger here, increasing the base damage and also increasing the physical power scaling. What's happening with AMC?
That's a fantastic segue, Isaiah. We're just bringing a little bit of a revert to some of the previous.
I mean, it's a good rework. AMC is such like a toxic character. He goes in and out of meta super fast. So you're gonna see these small buffs, small nerfs, small nerfs, buffs, small nerfs. Just what happens with
James
AMC.
reverting him.
That's just what happens with AMC, though.
You can bring him a little bit more power. Of course, he has very little safety. His hives, we think, are in a pretty good spot, so we didn't want to bring any more power into there. We think allowing the ultimate to do a little bit more damage should probably feel fair, especially for AMC, who should be good at boxing.
We've got a couple other hunters lined up here. Apollo up next. So beautiful. We're going to be increasing the damage on the ability.
Jeez, they really want Apollo to be played.
We've done a lot
Played.
for Apollo to help him overall make better use of his passive, have a bit more utility. And we think one thing
mean, it's a
that's
buff.
holding back just a hair is that's beautiful is really just a damage ability. It's pretty straightforward. It helps charge up the passive a little bit, but we're going to make that damage portion feel a bit more pronounced, increasing the base damage. His clear should go up.
Try to get used to like where I should put all the audios.
Last up for hunters for the patch, Artemis. Transgressor's Fate. We're going to be increasing the deployer range from 35 units to 40 units.
This ability feels so
Yeah,
bad to
Artemis is,
use.
she's doing pretty well, but we don't really see her that much in much of the high level scene or in the SPL. We did a lot of board changes, which I think has gone over fantastically. We gave her some slow immunity too. Now we're gonna play with Transgressor's Fate a little bit, which you don't really see that much used, inside of fights. You see some really cheeky plays with your supports or in team fights, but increase the range on it. We want us to be very, very careful, because if we think we go too far, this might actually start being pretty OP. So just a slight increase in the quality of life of this ability.
The trap is good, but it's just so hard to hit.
Chalk is up next.
Oh,
Storm Call. We're going to be increasing the damage mitigation that Chalk gains while he's channeling the ability.
wow.
I have
Yeah, we've done
returned.
quite a few buffs to
Chalk buffs.
over time. time. And one thing that
70% damage mitigation in Shockle?
Yep.
That guy's broken.
But this one is purely
Agreed.
a more mid to late game focused chain.
Agreed. Dude, Chalk just free dives whatever mage you have now.
Storm Call to react and mitigate a ton of that away.
He did before.
Mitigation per range.
I mean, 50%. Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah. But 70% now, you're not going to take damage from the ult. If you ever get hit by an ability, you just ult out of it, and it's basically like Robin 2.
Last up on the list
between
is
procs and the
Op
mitigation,
Watch. I
take
know
no
a lot
damage.
of people have been asking for some Op
I
Watch
did have music
buffs.
playing, yeah.
Well, we're going to be doing a lot.
Opwash 2?
First up, we're going to be fixing an issue where boss monsters could kill deployed corpses. And then after that, we're just going to be doing a sweeping pass on Undead Surge, Corpse Explosion, and Fleeting Breath, decreasing the mana cost on all 3 of those abilities.
Yeah, I mean, Upwatch is one of those gods that does extremely well in non-conquest game modes, and while we are okay with certain gods not necessarily being meta or pro viable in conquest, we think Upwatch could get a little bit of love there. We want it to be very specific on where we touch him. We don't think his damage
That's the buff
necessarily
they came
needs
up
that
with
much of a
for
change,
Opwash?
but his mana cost, well, he's a combo mage.
Yeah, it makes sense,
in
right?
Conquest,
Because, like, you
go
never
through a
care
lot of
about,
mana, so we think decreasing
like, the
across
2
board
modes where
is gonna help
he's
a
the most
lot.
oppressive
And
right
you're
here, like
also gonna
Joust
keep
and
a
Arena.
closer eye on him with
I'm
the
just
damage
paying
as
attention to
well.
Conquest.
Right, but
I don't play the
Assault
other game
is the
modes.
third.
All right, well, that
So if
wraps
you
it up
buff
for
the
balance for
damage,
season 8,
he's
for
better in
season,
Assault.
7, guys.
He's better in all the game modes where he's
7-12,
already
that's gonna be
OP.
coming live
But
on
if you buff the
December
mana
15th,
cost,
all of that
he's
balance
better
will
in
be headed into
Conquest.
the World Championship.
But it doesn't matter for the other game modes because you're almost always full mana.
Awesome year, but we did it.
No, yeah, it makes sense.
We got a couple that we wanna
It's not
talk
going to
about
change
before we
Conquest
start
to Opwash much.
DanZaBUROU.
I mean, it definitely
That's gonna
changes
be featuring
Conquest Opwash because he can full
Radiant,
combo the wave now.
Bologna. And this is
without worrying about
definitely
mana
in the
cost.
theme of some of our past,
I never really had a problem.
Magic
Whenever I played
Zero
Opwash,
games,
I
but
never
this
really
she's
had a
little
problem
bit
with
more
mana.
fierce.
He's definitely
And
like,
he is looking
if his kit
absolutely
is even like
phenomenal. And I
somewhat
believe
fun,
we're
he's going to be one of my
just about
favorite
ready.
hunters.
Dubious savings every time DANZABUROU gets gold, other than from the natural spooling of the game mode. 10% of that gold gets stored into one of his money pouches, which you can see in like the passive meter. There's up to 4 pouches, and anytime he's filled up to a certain max amount, so for example, the first pouch filled at 300 gold, he gets an extra burst of gold, obviously giving you more than what you've invested, as well as permanent power. You got your 4 different money pouches to fill up throughout the game.
Gold off.
That's pretty cool. That incentivizes him to
Let's
farm.
talk about
Like,
gold.
I think I'm confused by it. Like,
Yeah, I was gonna say let's talk about gold. But
he just gets like if he farms enough gold, he just gets like a nice burst of gold.
What's going on with
Yeah, every time he fills a pouch, he gets a buff.
So
A permanent
full gold,
buff and
DANZABUROU
a
doesn't
boost
have
of gold.
1 money bag, but he's got 3 that he fires.
And he fills the
outwards. 1 in a
pouches
straight
by
line and 2 slightly at an angle.
getting gold
These money bags,
outside of the gold
they pass
spooling.
through in damage medians and
Oh,
they
that
stop on
ability's
the
awesome.
first god. They also ricochet up to 2 times, and once they finally reach their max destination, they stop and they start exploding into a bomb. They start ticking away. They have like a 1-second timer before they blow up. into
Dude,
an
that is
explosion.
cool.
If
The
any of these
zoning
money
potential of
bags
this
actually hits a
ability.
god,
Yeah, I was just about
they
to say
also
the
drop
zone
a
on this is
coin that
insane.
DANZABUROU or his allied gods
You don't
can
build
pick
him-
up
there's no
to
way you're gonna
gain
build him ADC,
gold,
you're gonna build
straight
him
up
ability
into
based.
DANZABUROU's inventory.
It depends on
So
his
be note
scaling,
there
kind
that
of.
If you're the support for DANZABUROU or his friend, if you pick up that gold, you're giving it to Danza. You're not getting it yourself, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a
But
sick
he's also here
ability.
to trick people. But
The problem is
another thing that he is
It's not
all
there's
about
not a
is
trans
his
hunter, it's
sake
just
and
Devos
his
is broken
alluring
right now.
spirits. What's going on with ability 2?
That's the problem.
So with ability to alluring spirits, DANZABUROU takes a quick swig of a sake bottle. He gains a little bit of health before he throws it out, and once he throws it out, it deals damage in that inner circle, and then in the outer circle, it starts slowing enemy gods. And if it slows up to 3 times, and if it hits that 3 stacks,
that's not a big
then
heal, I
it'll,
was
it'll
worried.
actually toss it out towards the sake
Yeah,
bottle.
that's one
You can see
Cupid
the
heart.
sake bottle has pips. If it
Yep.
gets killed by the god that attacks it, or anyone else on that team, it will be destroyed early. Also, if the enemy gods that are taunted in the taunt CC get hit their maximum amount of health, they will be broken out of the effect early. So you can't just 100 to 0 someone that's being taunted.
Taunt is it's got no DR on it, so it's a pretty strong.
So it's like a
taunt
mez
on,
and a taunt
on
together.
Sake.
Mhm.
1 second taunt with no DR. That's right.
About
You're gonna
Fool's
build him like
Gold,
Neith.
We talked about Sake. We got to talk about.
Problem is his
Chris.
trans
What's
is just
happening
not
with-
good.
Quick preamble on this one. There were so many fun movement abilities we wanted to do. Like,
Yeah,
we
it's
could
all
spot
dependent
that,
on
we
his
couldn't obviously
scaling.
do all of them. I'm sure people can think about what they wanted to see from,
Yeah.
Tanuki lore. But this one I think came out phenomenally. DANZABUROU creates a field of like bamboo and vegetation around him. Where inside this area, he's slow immune. He takes less damage from specifically basic attacks. Enemies inside that area are slowed, and he also gets that haste style
that's
effect,
interesting.
So he can attack with free movement and no basic attack.
I like that.
Now, the thing is if
I
you
like
leave
that
this field
ability.
early before it expires, he turns into a leaf among other leaves that mimic his exact movement. So you can see there's a big poof
That's
of
actually
effects,
pretty
and he's
cool.
all
That
these
is
other
sick.
decoy leaves, and this is what we tease, which is like kind of a stealth, but not really, because enemies can see this. Now there's a green glow around which
That
one
is
DANZABUROU
sick.
is for himself and his allies, but enemies will not be able to tell that. They will just see any
Oh,
one of
nice.
these leaves. There's a very short window where DANZABUROU is not going to transform out of the leaf if he's attacked. But after that window, we're talking about like 0.5 seconds.
So,
any attack from
crazy
enemies
blocking
or from
potential
knocking
against
down on
melee
him,
gods.
he'll revert back
The
to
haste
normal.
is in an area, so he can't just like run someone
I'm
down,
loving
which is
the
also
kind
really
of
nice.
take on-
And then his
it's not
escape
quite
is
super,
insane.
but
This
it's
ability
creative,
is
you know,
sick.
Good at their
some
jobs.
illusion there,
Th-
some
that is
trickery.
this
I'm
third
loving the
ability
effects on
is
this
like
ability as well.
a
And
top
it's
3
the audio,
ability
the music.
created
I'm
this year.
loving how we got
Oh,
some of the
100%.
That is
traditional
one of the
Japanese
sickest
instruments
abilities, one of the best
as
made
kinda
abilities
audio
ever.
cues
It's
for
balanced. Like haste is strong,
The sound
and so
design
they
is
decided
great
to
so
reserve
far.
it to an area.
The effects are sick.
Like,
Like all the
Th-
teams
that is a
come
sick
so far.
ability.
That's-
I don't like
Oh,
haste
thunder
either,
tomato.
Oh, for
but
sure.
lockdown haste
Let's
is
talk
that's a
about
good
the
idea.
final bang, the blast, the uproarious rocket.
It's
What's
increased
happening with
MS
this
and
ultimate
haste.
ability?
I think, Alex, I'm not
Alright,
positive, but I
Uproarious
think it
Rocket.
is.
Well, DANZABUROU, using that leaf magic, he summons a magical leaf, and then he turns it into a bamboo rocket. And while he's preparing, you can aim only within 180 degrees during the pre-fire. And once you fire, well, you can just fire it like a normal projectile. Bang! He can fire it, it'll lock onto gods. It'll also collide with walls once it is locked on. So it is pretty easy to dodge if you got like a movement ability.
It
But
locks
it won't go
on.
very far
Wait, it
distance
locks
when
on?
it's
Can you
locked on.
body block
That's
it?
not the range that you use the targeter. That's only the lock-on range. But inside
Oh, wow.
the pre-fire, while he's using
Yeah, you can body block it.
while he's transforming the leaf, you can press the ability again. And please remember to do this because I know there's a lot of like tricks and like people who forgot this with Merlin. But you can press the ability again to become the rocket.
Dude, his
You see the
1v1
target
potential
aim
in,
for the
in
rectangle
duo
line.
is sick.
You
It's
can charge and
insane.
steer the rocket yourself. If the rocket in any of these
That's what I'm
forms
saying.
hits
Could you
an enemy
imagine this was like
directly,
150%
it'll stun
scaling
them
on
with
it?
their gods and deal 50% damage in
Oh,
the air.
that's so cool. Sorry, I can't get over this. This
No,
is
it's
so
so
awesome.
much
He's just
fun.
going around. Oh, this is awesome. And is DANZABUROU targetable while he's the rocket?
DANZABUROU is damage immune while in the rocket state, but as soon
What?
as he's out of it, he's very much
Dude, no
vulnerable.
joke. Solo laner.
This is definitely awesome.
What?
I
He's
can't wait to
damage
just, like, fire
immune.
this into a
What?
lane
So
and,
you
like,
literally
go all the way to red buff and
What?
engage in a fighter and or
Yeah.
engage that's happening. That's
It
super
goes
cool.
pretty fast. It goes pretty far, and I know we're gonna get into like his playstyle and stuff in a minute. But I want to let people.
You're
be aware that this is
genuinely
pretty well built,
ungankable.
strong on paper. It's very easy to dodge and get away from. The rocket
Dude, it
in
is
either the
110.
projectile form or if he's charging can collide with walls and can be body blocked, right? And it's a full 1.5 second pre-fire time. So if you want to gank him, he's actually pretty susceptible to ganks. You just body block the rocket, and he's not going anywhere. So when you're
He
done
can just
with Bro,
ult back
be
to
very
lane.
careful when you're using this ability. It's not the easiest to use.
That's
in
actually
the
so
middle
true,
of
Go
combat.
Fan.
And especially in the jungle.
I wonder how
where
far it
you
actually
have a
goes.
lock
Back to lane, he can
You might
ult
need to
into
use
team
this
fights from like
offensively.
behind red. There's nothing they can do about it.
A little
You
bit,
literally
but,
ult in, drop
where
your
how are you guys
3,
feeling about his playstyle?
1-2 on top of yourself?
Said, traditional hunter in the dual lane maybe can flex in the mid.
I don't know if his
Other than
clear's
that,
good enough
where
to be
do
a
you guys
jungler.
think
It's
that
probably
is?
not bad.
Feels actually
How are you
disgusting.
building him? How are you playing?
Best played in the ADC alongside other supports. If he's got a strong aggressive support with him, he actually dominates pretty well in the early game. Late game, with his deployable based nature, it's a little bit hard to pull off some of his abilities, especially his ultimate in the jungle.
I can see that.
But, you're a hunter, so you just hit that left clicks, and if you've got a good build, then he'll definitely be shredding enemies. And so speaking
Yeah,
of builds,
it's
like
really
you
just
said,
dependent on his
while
scaling.
we know that the bow builds and the
He's got no attack
speed
speed.
build is extremely
He's gonna be
meta, and it
ability-based.
does work well on hunters, including
He's got no
DANZABUROU.
attack speed
We
steroid,
found a lot
so
of
that
success doing Transcendence and
Silver
high
Branch
power on his
bow is
abilities.
bad.
So definitely give that a try. Maybe flex in the Atlantis bow. But I mean,
No,
season 8's coming up
ability-based.
soon, so I'm sure that'll shake things up.
I know, right? Definitely
Yeah,
looking
definitely.
forward to it. Well, this is the
I
final
can't wait to
god
play him
of
in the
season
jungle.
7, and we've kind of gone.
I wanna
through
play him
all
in
of
mid.
his kit.
I
biggest thing
think
for me is
the
just,
haste.
like,
I don't
that's,
mind the
like,
haste.
that
I
free
personally don't. I
ability,
know why
the
you do.
amount of time
But
that
the
he
the
has just hard shoot
damage
and
immune in the
confuse
ult
the
is
entire
so
playtest
dangerous.
has been really high.
So
You can do some
dangerous.
Really clever, flashy stuff with this. It's really cool. My
Yeah, it
favorite
stuns
so
one
far.
person nerdy, whoever he hits.
Pon is definitely.
I don't know how he's
fun
gonna
stuff with
die.
This one, because like he'll 5
100%.
He'll use this one.
I don't know
he'll
if it's
definitely
aggressive
use
enough for a
one
dart
to
as
believe
god.
Where they're going
Alright,
and aim
so
it towards
here's my
a
analysis.
place where if you're
Cool
playing and you're
kit.
looking-
But not complicated enough that he's going to be something that's at the top of the meta.
Once it gets nerfed, maybe not, but I think currently, if his numbers are good, and depending how, like, just how he feels, like, if he feels like a good god to play, because, like, some gods have that feel, if, like, they feel good. Like, Susano, great feel. If he has a good feel, and if his numbers are good, I think he'll be probably the best hunter in the game, bar, like, a huge buff to some other god. He just has too much safety. You can't gank him. You don't know where he's going to be coming from. He's got 1v2 potential with his, like, CC. If you blink onto him, he's just going to kill you.
I don't know how much of that I believe, though.
What? Why don't you believe it? You, like, drink your sake drink, you throw it on the ground. If he gets close enough, they get taunted, and then you start ulting away.
Right.
If you can 1v1 someone, like, if the ADC is not far enough or not close enough to follow up, You just toss your Yasaki on top yourself. Then I don't remember the other ability, the 3-bomb ricochet ability. Throw that at them, and then you just auto away. And you drop your 3. You're taking less damage from auto attacks.